Hello, parents. Welcome back to another episode of Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam. I'm your host, Dr. Cam. And today I'm talking with Norman W. Holden, the author of Do Better, How One Father Gained Wisdom from Texting His Teen Daughter. Norm is not a therapist, licensed professional, or counselor. He describes himself as a down-to-earth, everyday man, husband, and father of two who has earned his hard knocks degree in parenting. Welcome, Norm. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Cam. I appreciate you having me on this morning.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your story as a dad and how you got into writing this book.
Well, I would have to say that I never started out with the intent to write a book. It all started with the fact that I felt like I was disconnected from my daughter. As a father of a teen girl growing up, moving on in life, I felt like there was this disconnect that I wasn't able to bridge. And frankly, it felt like social media, or the device that she had in her hand, had more of an impact on her than I did. And unfortunately, it probably while technology brings a lot of great things into our lives, it feels like there was a lot more negative that came from that device and positive in her world. And I was having difficulty just communicating like we are now. And I figured if she, had this device with her all the time, that maybe it would be better if I try connecting to her through that technology. Even though I'm not big into social media, I don't do a lot of that stuff. I felt like, why not try to use the technology that's captured her attention? So I just started one morning. I wanted her to have some positive influences in her life. So I just one morning decided to send her a positive message, and I said, well, I'll do it again. And I just kind of started on this routine of doing it, which eventually evolved into me doing it for a year straight. I never intended on doing that originally, but that's eventually what it progressed into. And it was, I built a regimen of just sending her a positive message, positive affirmations, something to help try to motivate her, just bring something a good message on a daily basis. So that's how it all kind of started.
How did your daughter respond when you started texting her?
Well, funny enough, I got no responses.
Okay, so most teens. Okay.
The message went into the ether, and I didn't get anything back. And it was, at first it was a little disheartening, and I was talking to my wife about it. She says, well, are you doing it to get a response? And I said, no, that's not why I started this. She says, then don't worry about it. Well, after about 2 months or so of doing this, I finally, one morning, I said, in my message, I said, should I continue? And that was the one that she responded to. She said, yes. I enjoy getting these messages. So it was, okay, so I need to keep doing it. And then you get into a process of trying to come up with a simple message on a daily basis for, what eventually.
I'm losing your sound a little bit, Norm. I'm
sorry.
Okay.
What turned into something that eventually became a daily routine for a year. I learned that it was a challenge to come up with something positive,
every day.
A positive affirmation or motivation on a daily basis. It was a challenge.
So your sound is coming in and out a little bit. It's really good for one moment and then kind of go out. I don't want people to miss this because I think this message is so important. And what I really want to pull out of this is that you, and I love what your wife said. because I think that is so critically important. Are you doing it to get a response, or are you doing it to connect with your teen? Because I think so many parents do this and reach out, and when they don't get that response, they feel hurt and they give up. And yours was through the persistence of doing it. And even though you weren't getting the response, you were getting through. And I think that is the biggest, most important message to give parents, is just keep showing up, because it's getting through. So what did you learn through this process with your teen?
Well, I mean, I learned it was very introspective, the whole process, and I learned a great deal, not only about trying to better communicate. I just, a lot of it, you're looking in hindsight at your parenting and what you did and what you should have done, and you kind of kick yourself a little bit and say, I should have probably just been more forward earlier in life and made more of an effort to have that conversation on a more regular basis. But it all kind of, not to make excuses, but I think it happens to all of us, where life kind of happens and we're distracted with everything that's going on around us, and we don't build that routine that we need to have that conversation. And sometimes it's challenging with the teen. We have actually 3 children. Emily was the oldest, and then we had twin sons. And it's hard to get through. And I think, frankly, at least for me, it was harder to get through to my daughter than it was to my sons, because I understood what they were going through. Whereas in my book, I described that, as a father of a teen daughter, I don't have the same, I haven't had the same life experiences, so I can't fully appreciate what she is going through as she, transitions through adolescence and teenage years and then early adulthood. So it's a little bit harder to make that connection.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of dads and girls, that connection that they had when they were little, they miss it, but they don't know how to keep it because the dynamic changes so much. And I think dads get a little just nervous because they're not even sure what to say, right? They're not exactly sure how to show up for their kids. They start focusing on being the provider. But I hear from a lot of girls, dads suddenly I feel rejected by my dad, and the dads feel rejected by their daughters because they just don't know how to connect. So I just admire that you went and said, okay, instead of fighting this texting thing and making her put it down and spend time with me, I'm going to show up where she's at, which is on her phone, and I'm going to keep popping up on her phone, right where she already is, and just show up for her. And I can't even fathom how that felt for your daughter. I bet that was just mind-blowing for her to know that you were there thinking of her every day.
Yeah, it is. It was certainly an interesting experience, and I would tell people that technology as a whole, especially being a parent of the first generation of kids that grew up with it, we don't realize the impact it has on them until I think, frankly, it's too late. And then one of the things that I realized is you just can't replace conversation. It doesn't matter what medium you try to use to if it's virtually like this or texting or Instagram or whatever it may be. It doesn't replace one-to-one conversation with somebody. And I would tell parents they need to do that often and early, and as much as possible, set up some boundaries with that device, and don't let it control your teen's life like it does for a lot of them. So I think it's, I don't know if this is the right path for everybody, but it was something different. and that I tried. And like I said before, I didn't start out wanting to put it in a book, but as I went along, and after talking with my daughter about it, I realized that, hey, there's probably some other parents out there. When I talk to folks, I realize there's other people that are struggling with the same things, and I put it out there and with the hopes that maybe if it can help one or two other parents, and then it's done some good. So
That's great. And how did it change your relationship with your daughter?
I think the biggest thing is you talk about that a young daughter and a father, that connection early on. I think what it has done is just made her realize that she's loved. No matter no matter what path or what choices she makes or whatever she does, she firmly knows where I stand and my feelings. And I think it's helped to connect us more. Now, do we talk as much? I don't know if we do or not, but I think it's certainly when we are together, I can tell that some of that connection that we had when she was younger is there again. So
Yeah. Well, you were building it daily, and I think putting that as a kind of a habit or a ritual where you made the effort to connect, because I think a lot of times we, like you said, we get so busy and all of a sudden we look back and we go, oh my God, I haven't even talked to my child in a week, right? And it's like, that's a long time for a kid to not go without connecting. And I'm imagining too, because I know a lot of parents are going, I want to connect, I don't know how. And when I make an effort, I get rebuffed, right? They just kind of push me aside. But this is a way to just kind of sneak in there where they already are, right? And you start building that, and that then creates an opening to have that face-to-face conversation, which you're right, nothing replaces that, but that kind of supports and builds up to that and kind of just creates that bridge between when you get that time together.
Yeah, for sure. You can't replace that daily routine, the conversation. One of the challenges that I have, and I know other parents have the same thing, and I think you mentioned it a little bit ago, as a father, you're very much wrapped into having to provide for your family.
Yeah.
And for me, for extended period of time, I had to travel quite a bit for my work. So I would call home every night and talk to my kids, but it wasn't the same as being in the room and having a conversation with them. And at the time that I did it, it was at a critical point in my daughter's, development from, early teenage years on.
Yeah.
I was not there as much. So part of me felt like I needed to make up for that time that I wasn't there, which, we all, try to make the best decisions that we can as we go along as parents. And you can always, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You could always do something different. But I just realized that I probably wasn't as connected as I should have been. I should have stepped up more at the time, looking back at it.
Yeah, I think what's important though too is that even though you hadn't, and you looked back and you're like, oh, I wish I had, doesn't mean, oh, well, I haven't, so it's all right. You're like, okay, but today I'm going to change that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's never too late to change that. If you hear this and you're a dad right now that feels disconnected from your teen, particularly your teen daughter, which so many people do, so you're not alone, you can start today reconnecting. And I think it's really important in what you noticed from your daughter, even though she wasn't showing response and giving you that, man, it was making a difference in her life.
Yeah, it really did feel like it helped us connect where we were, kind of pulled apart there for a little while.
Yeah.
So even though she's moved to work's taking her to a different state now, we still try to connect on the phone. I don't barrage her with the texts anymore because I felt like after a year of doing that maybe that I'd give her a break from it. But,
I bet she loved it. I mean, it's one thing. I think the other dynamic we often get into with our kids, particularly during the teen years, is it's conflict, right? It's a lot of what correction and what they didn't do right. And so to get the steady influx of positive affirmations from your parent, that's what kids like. They crave that.
yeah, they do, and we don't realize that. I hate to keep beating up on technology, but that's where they're getting a lot of that affirmation from, positive or negative. That's the reality of it. And again, being a first generation parent, we really didn't know the impact of that technology. And I've talked to parents that have had children that were a few years older than our daughter that kind of moved through their teenage years with that just kind of the social media coming in at the end of their older teenage years, and then a daughter like ours that was right there at their early transition from adolescence to teen years, where that's when it just showed up, and you don't realize, unfortunately, you don't realize it until it's too late that the impact that it has.
Yeah. So what do you recommend for parents who are worried about the amount of time their kids are spending on their devices?
Yeah, I see where I personally get a little frustrated. I see a lot of parents, no different than, when I was younger, what my parents wanted to occupy me, it was go outside.
Yeah.
Go outside and play, do something. I grew up in a different time. Parents now, because it's so prevalent and it's everywhere, it's used as a tool to help occupy or distract children. And when I see little kids at restaurants and their faces in this, it's like you're losing an opportunity to connect with your child. And I think it's like anything in life. As a parent, you have to try to set up some boundaries with it, as much as possible. Obviously, you have to allow them some time to connect with their friends because, frankly, that's how they're doing it.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the dominant feature in your household. I know for us as a family, we had dinners together every night, and that, phones weren't allowed in the kitchen, and they weren't allowed at the table, and we were there together as a family. And I would just tell parents that that's an awesome time to try, just try to connect with your kids in general, and use that time because we all got to sit down and have dinner, and it's a great opportunity to have that conversation and try to connect with your kids.
Yeah, I think the family dinner has really kind of lost its place in the daily habits, right? Because we're so busy. And yet everyone I talk to that's really connecting with their kids, that is one of the core elements of it, is having that regular time and making it a priority, right? I think we prioritize everything else over that, and that is still the most important thing. So we're kind of sacrificing the most important thing to do all this other stuff. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I can't reiterate enough, is that need to connect with your kids. Because even though they seem to be pushing you away, they want a connection with you so badly. And I think you showed that with just how your daughter responded.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was a labor of love, if you want to look at it that way. It wasn't to write a book or do anything else. It was just one dad trying to figure out his way through parenting.
Yeah.
This is just the journey it took me down. So
I love it. So how can people find your book?
Well, they can find it just about anywhere that you can look for a book, Amazon. So it's independently published. That was part of my journey of learning the process of writing
Right.
a book, was learning how to publish it. But you can find it anywhere. I have a website called dobetterwisdom.com, and they can order from there, or check me out. Other than that, I don't have too many other social media platforms for people to go look for it. So
That's all right. I think they'll be interested in your story though. And I believe you've probably inspired several people, hopefully, to go text their kids right now a nice positive statement. I have also found gifts. I have one niece that only replied when I would send a gift, and I finally learned that. I'm like, so we'll just talk in gifts. That's fine. That's great. At least we're connecting, right? So it's speaking their language.
Yeah. I was never going to figure out Snapchat, so I just stick with texting.
Right, exactly. Leave that to them. So thank you so much. Any parting words of wisdom or encouragement for parents of teenagers?
Yeah, just a shameless plug of the book is just do better. You, as parents, as adults, as leaders, we can always do better than we did yesterday. Yeah. So, we all get frustrated sometimes with how things occur, and sometimes just take a step back, a deep breath, and try it again. And,
I love that.
Try to have a positive impact. So.
Yep. Just keep trying something new until you get through. Love that. Thank you, Norm. I'm so grateful you could join us today.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you, parents, for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us. If you want to learn more about how to help your teen succeed, you can grab my top 10 parenting tips at askdrcam.com/parenting tips. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode and all the helpful strategies Norm shared with us, please take a quick moment to rate and review. This helps other parents like you find this show. I encourage you to share it with a friend as well. Until next time, have a peaceful, positive, calm day.